going to launch an effort to try to delay the election, or was that just a trial balloon this morning?
Well, what I want to explain to people, but it doesn't need much explanation. I mean, you look at article after article, New York's mail vote disaster, tens of thousands of mail ballots have been tossed out in this year's primaries. What will happen in November? It's a mess. This is done by Washington Post. Can you believe it? The Washington Post of all papers. Fake news, but in this case it's not fake, it's true. This is done by the Wall Street Journal. Here's another one. Vote by mail experiment reveals potential problems within postal voting system ahead in the November election. And you see what's happening with so many different places. They're doing even trial runs. They're a disaster. And I don't want to see an election. You know, so many years I've been watching elections. And they say the projected winner or the winner of the election. I don't want to see that take place in a week after November 3rd or a month or, frankly, with litigation and everything else that can happen, years, or you never even know who won the election. You're sending out hundreds of millions of universal mail-in ballots, hundreds of millions. Where are they going? Who are they being sent to? It's common sense. You don't have to know anything about politics. And the Democrats know this. The Democrats know this, Steve. So I want an election and a result much more than you. I think we're doing very well. We have the same fake polls, but we have real polls. We're doing very well. I just left Texas, and Biden came out against fracking. Well, that means Texas is going to be one of the most unemployed states in our country. That means Oklahoma, North Dakota, New Mexico, going to be a disaster. Ohio, Pennsylvania, disaster, no fracking. I want to have the result of the election. I don't want to be waiting around for weeks and months and literally, potentially, if you really did it right, years, because you'll never know. These ballots are missing. You saw Paterson, New Jersey. You saw many other instances. There's tremendous litigation on that right now. And that doesn't include absentee. Absentee is different. Absentee, you have to work and you have to send in for applications. You have to go through a whole procedure. Like, for instance, I'm an absentee voter because I can't be in Florida because I'm in Washington. I'm at the White House. So I'll be an absentee voter. We have a lot of absentee voters, and it works. So we're in favor of absentee, but it's much different than millions of people. In California, they're going to send out tens of millions of voting forms. Well, where are they going to go? You read where postmen are in big trouble now. You read where city councils are in big trouble now. Voter fraud all over the ballots. So, no, I want to be standing, hopefully, hand held high, big victory, because we're doing things with our country that I think nobody else could have done. Our country is, despite this pandemic, which is devastating the rest of the world, by the way, devastating. One of the articles that came out was the world's COVID resurgence. This is the Wall Street Journal editorial, the main editorial yesterday in the Wall Street Journal. I don't always agree with them, but they have the world's COVID resurgence. Countries hailed as models to see, and then they go, the virus returns at a level like they haven't even seen. We've been giving praise to certain countries, and the virus has now come to them like the first time. But it's a very interesting, and it talks about many countries where everybody was holding them up and saying, what a great job they did. Well, it's just one of those things. Didn't work out so well. So we want to have an election. I'd love to see voter ID. But this is the opposite of voter ID. The Democrats love it. The Republicans hate it. We all agree that absentee voting is good. Mail-in ballots will lead to the greatest fraud. You know, we talk about Russia for 2.5 years, and then they found nothing, and there was nothing. But they talk Russia. They talk China. They talk all of these countries. They say they get involved in our elections. This is easy. You can forge ballots. This is much easier for foreign countries. Go ahead, Steve.
But delaying the Election is probably a non-starter. I mean, wouldn't you agree with that?
I just feel I don't want to delay. I want to have the election. But I also don't want to have to wait for 3 months and then find out that the ballots are all missing and the election doesn't mean anything. That's what's going to happen, Steve. That's common sense. And everyone knows it. Smart people know it. Stupid people may not know it. And some people don't want to talk about it, but they know it. And no, we want to have an election where people actually go in and what's your name? My name is so-and-so. Boom, you signed the book like I've been doing for years. It's very, very unfair to our country. If they do this, our country will be a laughingstock all over the world because everyone knows it doesn't work. How many ballots is he sending in California? Is it 28 million or some massive number? Other states are sending out millions and millions of ballots. Well, they've done it. They had experiments. They had news organizations experimenting. And look, read the story in the Washington Post about mail-in voting. It's a disaster. I'm very surprised to see that story, frankly, from them. The story is a disaster. So we're asking for a lot of trouble. And no, do I want to see a date change? No. But I don't want to see a crooked election. This election will be the most rigged election in history if that happens, John.
So, Mr. President, you said that you don't want to see a delay in the election, but then it looks like the process of these mail-in ballots is going to continue to November the 4th.
Well, we have many court cases, John. We have one that's been filed for a while now in western Pennsylvania, as an example, on mail-in ballots.
So I'm
And,
just wondering,
and by the way, John, we give tremendous examples, numbers of examples of all the fraud and all of the things that have taken place with respect to mail-in
I'm
ballots.
just wondering, is the net effect of what you tweeted this morning and what you're talking about now to cast doubt on the results of the November 3rd election?
Well, it's had an interesting impact. I didn't know it was going to be the impact it had. What people are now looking at is, am I right? But not me. Are all these stories right about the fact that these elections will be fraudulent, they'll be fixed, they'll be rigged? And everyone's looking at it. And a lot of people are saying, you know, that probably will happen. Please, Jennifer.
Mr. President, to break the logjam in Congress and to prevent that unemployment insurance from lapsing, what do you plan to put on the table tonight? What are you
Well,
planning
it's a
to-
great question. I can't tell you, though, because that wouldn't be very smart from a negotiating standpoint. But we'll be putting certain things on the table.
Have a plan to put
We
something-
want to get money to people. It wasn't their fault. And we want to get money to people, and it has to be substantial. It's not their fault what happened. The fact is, people don't like saying it. They know it's true. It's China's fault, okay? It's not their fault. It's not the worker who lost his job. It's China's fault. And that's the way it is. OAN, please.
Mr. President, yesterday DHS came to an agreement with the governor of Oregon to remove federal officers if Oregon State Troopers took over. Mayor Ted Wheeler was noticeably absent from that agreement. Are you confident, sir, that the state of Oregon will be able to quell the protests in Portland? And if the violence does continue, would you consider redeploying federal troops?
So our people have done Homeland Security, have done a fantastic job. They went to Oregon a little more than a week ago. The place was a mess. The city, Portland, was just a disaster. You see it, and a lot of people weren't reporting it right. They tried to pretend it was a protest as opposed to anarchists and agitators. You understand what I'm saying. It's a mess. They went there a short while ago, and they saved a federal courthouse that costs hundreds of millions of dollars. And they put a ring around the courthouse, and they saved it. But the group that's there is basically meant to save buildings, and they were very strong, very powerful. And they didn't come out too often out of this cocoon that they built in order to save these very expensive, valuable, and psychologically important buildings, right? Like courthouses. The governor and the mayor, we've been dealing with them, and we think they don't know what they're doing because this should not have been going on for 60 days. It's not our job, unless in case of emergency, which I consider now to be an emergency, it's not our job to go in and clean out the cities. That's supposed to be done by local law enforcement. Yesterday, the governor worked a deal where they'll do it, We'll stand by. They'll do it, and that's good. Well, it was very good, but she didn't report it that way. What she reported was totally different. She said, I think Trump wants to take over the country. It's crazy. So what happened is our people are staying there to see whether or not they can do it today and tomorrow. And if they don't do it, we will send in the National Guard and we'll take care of it. And we're telling right now these protesters, and many should be arrested, because these are professional agitators, these are professional anarchists, these are people that hate our country. We're telling them right now that we're coming in very soon. The National Guard, a lot of people, a lot of very tough people. And these are not people that just have to guard the courthouse and save it. These are people that are allowed to go forward and do what they have to do. And I think that makes the governor's job and the mayor's job a lot easier. So they're working today and probably tomorrow to clean out this beehive of terrorists. And if they do it, I'm going to be very happy. And then slowly we can start to leave the city. If they don't do it, we'll be sending in the National Guard. Please.
Mr. Trump, given what's happening with Major League Baseball and now today the Rutgers football team is quarantined, how can you assure people that schools will be safely reopened?
So can you assure anybody of anything? I do say, again, young people are almost immune to this disease. The younger, the better. I guess they're stronger. They're stronger. They have a stronger immune system. It's an incredible thing. Nobody's ever seen this before. Various types of flu will hurt young people more than older people. But young people are almost immune. If you look at the percentage, it's a tiny percent of 1%. It's a tiny percent of 1%. So we have to have our schools open. We have to protect our teachers. We have to protect our elderly. But we do have to have our schools open.
Mr. President?
Yeah, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, a week ago you said you're in the process of developing a strategy that's going to be very powerful involving the coronavirus. Where is that strategy?
Well, I think you're seeing it, and I think you will see it. And one of the things that we've done that we're getting, it hasn't been utilized fully yet, but we're all set to march when it comes to the vaccine. We have great therapeutics that are testing very well, and we have great vaccines from incredible companies, Johnson & Johnson and Pfizer and Merck and all of these great companies, and they're doing very well. And the delivery system is all set. Logistically, we have a general that's all he does is deliver things, whether it's soldiers or other items. And I think you're going to see something that's going to be spectacular. The FDA has approved things at a rate that's a tiny fraction of what it would take during another administration, let's say. We are way ahead on vaccines, way ahead on therapeutics. And when we have it, we're all set up with our platforms to deliver them very, very quickly. The vaccines are doing well, the therapeutics are doing well, and we're all set to deliver them as soon as we have them, and that's going to be very soon. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, folks, thank you so much for joining us and choosing us as your stream of choice. If you guys like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and you share it on social media. If you are new to the channel, we encourage you to subscribe and click that notification bell. And also don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Gold State Times. To get notified for future live streams coming tomorrow, text the word Trump Live to the number 555-888. Once again, if you want to get notified by us instead of YouTube for future live streams, text the word Trump Live to the number 555-888. Thank you so much, folks, and we'll see you very soon. Peace.